So I'll be recording this session again para pwede nyo i-review on your own time, no? And for those na hindi nakasama today sa lesson. Right? So, yung lesson natin for today is lines of intersection, piercing points, pati angles between lines and planes, no? And all of these are connected somehow, no? So, let's start with the most basic one, which is piercing points muna. Bring down ko lang. Okay, so open your AutoCAD tapos again, meron tayong files doon sa ano no. Google Classroom natin. It's 2 PDF files. Just download those files. Tapos ang gagawin natin is we attach them, no? Let me just show the ribbon para alam niyo kung paano. If you remember, we use the attach function, no? Again, hindi tayo nag-PDF import kapag hindi gawa sa AutoCAD yung isang PDF file. Kasi ang lalabas dyan para blanco lang if you use PDF import. Let's use attach. Tapos, hanapin nyo lang. Let's do this one first. Piercing points. And, pwede natin i-skip yung first page. The first page is just a cover page, no? So, pwedeng page 2 and 3 lang. And, pwede na siguro to. So, I think the defaults are okay, no? Scale of 1, angle of 0, tapos we can specify on screen. Okay. And if hindi siya lumabas, you can just zoom extents. So Z then E para mag-put into screen siya. And I'll just close the ribbon so that you'll have more space to look at it. Magpapatong-patong siya. So ang gagawin natin is we just take one of the image tapos place it off to the side. No? So you should have something that looks like this. So side by side na sila. Pag-iwalayin. Click nyo lang. One click lang. If you do left click, ang mangyayari kasi, or sorry, if you do the left selection wherein you drag it to the left, ang mangyayari kasi is it selects both, no? So para hindi ma-select ang both underlays, yung PDF underlay, you just single click one of the borders. So pag single click nyo, if you have selection cycling on, so this is what we call a selection cycling, no? And selection cycling is useful kapag meron kayong multiple objects that are sitting on top of one another. For if hindi siya lumabas, ang usually kung hindi naka-on yung selection cycling, by default it selects whatever is on top. Okay? So usually kung sino yung last na na-import na page will be the one on top. So which is in our case convenient because the last attached is the second page. So i-click lang natin siya, one click lang, single click. Then you can move drag it by its anchor point here. Tapos drag nyo lang to the right. And you should have something that looks like this. Again, single click lang kasi if you try to drag it to the left, both yung isa-select niya na pages. Alright? So, now that you have this, very important, i-select nyo lang itong endpoint, node, intersection, perpendicular, and parallel. Okay? Because there are a lot of, lot of different na snapping points dito sa PDF. Because it's a PDF, if you zoom in, kunwari ito, if you try to zoom in, this is of course a vector image, pero itong thickness kasi na to is not detected by AutoCAD as a single line. It detects it as if it were a rectangle. No? So if you try to draw a line, kunwari, meron siyang different endpoints. So if you try to do a midpoint, parang may let me just show you, no? Kunwari may midpoint ako dyan. If I try to pinpoint, and hindi siya lumalabas. So, wait lang ha. So, hindi masyadong obvious. Kunwari, dyan. So, if you look at it, maraming, yan, lumalabas. Ito, may midpoint na lumabas dito, may endpoint na lumabas dito. So, all over the place, maraming snapping points na pwedeng pag-snapan. Because again, it treats it as if it's a 3D object, or no, not a 3D object. It treats it as if it's a parang object with thickness, no? Hindi siya considered as just a single line. So, para ma-ensure na hindi tayo nag-overlap ng mga points, let's keep it to the bare minimum, no? So, let's do endpoint, node, intersection, perpendicular, and parallel. Anong gagawin? Anong meron? Ay, hindi pala pwede. Mag-extract din pala to. Paano kaya? Attach yung gamit mo, no? Okay, wait lang ha. Let me think about it. Paano ko kaya ma-ensure? Uh, Probably I can recreate this. Okay, give me 5 minutes. Re-recreate ko na lang para sa mga hindi makapag-import na maayos, no? So, let me just recreate. Wait lang. Parang hindi yata tama to. What's the best way? Pag sinare ko, madidetect kasi as external reference ito. Try mo nga i-download ulit yung PDF. Pero yung PDF, nag-show siya as correctly? Pag in-open mo yung PDF? Bakit hindi siya, ano? Eh. Gumana na? Okay na? Ah, sige. Hindi ko na gagawin to. Okay. Alright, so the first thing we need to find is a piercing point, no? So the piercing point, you can think of it as, technically the piercing point is just the intersection between a line and a plane, no? So when a line interacts with a plane, you produce what we call as a piercing point. And you can imagine this as, try to imagine a piece of paper. Tapos ang gagawin nyo is skewer nyo yung piece of paper na yun with a pencil or a pen. Where it interacts with where the pen interacts with your paper is called the piercing point, no? Doon pumapasok yung pen mo and doon siya nagkakaroon ng parang common point between the line and the plane. So it's called the piercing point kasi parang ang labas is it's like the line is skewering or piercing the plane at exactly one point. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is, if you just think about it, no, try to imagine kung how you can find the piercing point in space. Just try to imagine your you have a piece of paper, meron siyang pencil dyan na naka-skewer. Ano yung best way para mahanap mo yung location ng piercing point? Intuitively, no? If you just think about it, rotating around in space. Ano yung parang pwedeng orientation for your pen or your paper? Edge view, no? Parang it makes sense kasi if you can somehow show the edge view of the paper, parang ang lalabas, it seems as if dalawang lines lang sila. So they appear as two lines, and where they intersect, that is surely the piercing point. Tama? So let's try to do that. Ang gagawin natin is create lang muna tayo ng edge view. And I'll just generate construction layers dito, no? I'll say this is my construction line. And lalagyan ko ng transparency. I'll make the lines a little thinner, 13 siguro. Tapos, again, I'll use a softer color, no? Oh, sorry. Ito pala dapat yung CL. Let's rename this final answer. Okay? Ang gagawin natin is we have a line that is conveniently parallel to the reference plane, which is the FRP. So meaning si AC is conveniently parallel. We can label this as true length. And mukhang kailangan natin i-adjust muna yung text, no? Text length. So if I do this, adjust natin, I think 0.1 would work, no? Tama? 0.1 works fine. Okay? So this is your true length. Tapos since we have a true length, kaya na natin AC. My mistake. AC should be the true length. Tama? Kasi AC yung parallel sa reference plane natin. Okay? Let me just double check na. Re-record ba ako? Yes, I'm recording. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is, like before, we want to create a parallel line by hovering over para lang ma-extend natin to. Okay? So, hindi natin ma-extend yung line because, again, hindi siya detected as an AutoCAD line. So, we can't use the tool EX to extend the line. So, what we do is, we just create a line using this endpoint. Tapos, gagawin natin is hover over the line until lumabas yung parallel symbol. Pag lumabas yung parallel symbol, then we can now create a parallel line. Okay? Yan. So, we can just follow the line like this. So, let's just extend it to some extent. Pwede siguro na ganyan. Kasi this will serve as the projection line as well. No? Now, I'll just change my layer to oops, sorry. Saan ako? Line. Oh, sorry. Let me change to the final answer layer. Para pwede akong mag-create ng perpendicular line. Again, let's just do a comfortable distance away from the HRP, no? And of course, like before, we need to label our fold line. So this is this fold line. And I'll do 0.1 yung height niya. Rotation would be this rotation. Para pwedeng gumawa ko ng ARP1. Do we need an additional view? Parang hindi na, no? One view will suffice. Kasi pag nag-edge view na siya, kaya na natin mahanap or ma-project backwards. No? So we can just do ARP kasi one ARP lang gagawin natin. And HRP sa left sides. Oops. Ay, hindi ko pala na, no? Hindi ko ata na-read it. Let me do that again. No? So text. Starting point is here. Height is 0.1. Rotation is this one. And I'll do ARP, FRP. Hindi siya nag-rotate. Again, one more time. Text. Rotation. ARP, HRP. Okay. Hindi ko alam kung anong nangyari doon. Anyway, next is we just project the line. So, let's start with the plane first. We have the projection line for AC. So, ang kailangan na lang is si point B. C is this distance away. Again, make sure that you're getting the perpendicular distance. So, this is point A, which is also the location of point C kasi they will appear as a point. So, I'll just trim that off. And I'll just place a point here as well, no? Hindi na kailangan pala. Okay? Then, we create another circle for point B. Then, 2 views away. Ito yung basis for distances. Then, find the location of point B. And this should be... Dapat pala nilayo ko konti, no? Para pasok siya dito. Okay lang yan. Lumilitaw naman siya dito. Okay? Now, I'll switch to my final answer layer para ma-drawing ko na to. NAB. And naka-interfere to, no? I'll just move it around, no? Ito. I'll select all my lines so far. And this is a good opportunity to use the lasso tool, no? I'll just lasso it. Tapos, ang gagawin ko is, I'll move it. Using this endpoint, move ko lang siya papunta sa endpoint ito. So that I'm following the parallel direction, no? Kumbaga ito. Okay, so I'll just move it here. And this is okay, no? And I'll just extend it. Pag ganyan. Okay lang to. It shouldn't interfere with the results because kumbaga, I'm just moving the reference plane away. So, ang basis naman ng distances dito is still this distance, which is hindi naman natin ginalaw. So, moving this fold line here would not affect the final answer, no? What is affected is if you created another reference plane. Kunwari, nag-create ako ng ARP2, pag ganun na case, magmo-move na yung distances. Kasi 2 views away will now be 1, 2. Dito na yung basis na distances. So, yung movement na to will affect the next view. But since ito, ARP, is based on the FRP distances, yung ginawa natin na movement na yun, hindi dapat siya nakaka-affect. Okay? So, we have ABC. And probably, let's label this now. This is CA in its point view. Again, CA because C is closer to the reference plane. Then this is point B. Now let's do the line. Okay. So let's project this one perpendicular to the reference plane or the fold line. And this one, let's just do a parallel line here now. Parallel to the projection line. And let's get the distances. This is 2. And let's get... Medyo mahirap siya kasi... can we change the draw order? Okay. Hindi ba siya naman? So, let's try to... Kasi nakaka-affect siya, no? What I'll do is... If sa inyo, lumitaw siya... If it's perfectly fine, then okay lang yon. Ay, ito, lumitaw na. Ba't siya nagana kanina? Okay. Pagka may ganong cases, no? So, kunwari, may isang object na it's interfering with your drawn lines, what you can actually do is select the object and you can do draw order. Draw order changes the, kumbaga, the sort of layer kung saan siya nagdo-draw. So, you can do under objects and above objects. If you do under objects, and select the objects that you want. So, kunwari ito, gusto ko nasa ilalim siya nitong lines na to and press enter. Then it will change it to a lower level, kumbaga. So again, that's important kapag yung case ko kanina wherein itong notes na block no was interfering. Pero ngayon okay na siya, so I can now measure again. So ito si 2, I'll measure it from this distance and hanapin ko lang. I'll just zoom in kasi baka ma-snap ko sa wrong snapping point. No? So I'll zoom in here. Okay, so that's point 2. And lastly, si point 1 is this distance. Point 1, ito siya. Now, let's connect the lines. Again, I'm changing the layer. I'll go final answer layer and I'll connect point 1 and point 2. Probably label this as well. Point 1, point 2. And where it intersects, that is now your piercing point. Okay, and we can label it, no? We can say this is the piercing point. Usually, we label the piercing point with PP. Sometimes just P would be enough, no? Pero parang nasanay lang ako na PP yung nilalagay ko kasi to indicate that it is a piercing point. But if you want to be more terse, pwede naman P lang ilagay nyo. Okay? So that is the piercing point and it makes sense, no? Parang yung sa imagination natin, parang we rotated the plane in space such that nagmumukha siyang isang line tapos where the line skewered the edge view, that is, the intersection point is now the piercing point. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is, when we have the piercing point, hindi pa enough, no? Kasi we know that the piercing point is here, but we need to still locate the piercing point along the different views. Kasi the piercing point is a final answer, therefore, we need to complete the views by showing the piercing point in all of the given views. So, ang gagawin lang natin is, because the piercing point is technically just a point, no? It's a point that is shared between the line and the plane, and therefore, similar sa ginawa natin sa intersection point when we decided, when we tried to analyze whether a line is, anong tawag dito? Truly intersecting with another line, di ba, ang ginawa natin was to project the shared point, kumbaga. So in this case, what we need to do is just project this shared point right here. Again, the piercing point is a shared point between the line and the plane. So let's create a projection line from here. Tapos, project lang natin siya ng ganon. Okay? Now, the way we determine kung nasaan siya, we can base it on either the plane or the line, no? But if you use the plane, parang walang way for you to determine where it terminates. Because the plane has an infinite number of points. Tama? It has an infinite number of points dito. It can end here, 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 or here. Pero, the line only has one point that is intersecting with the projection line. So that's why for finding the piercing point, it's better to use the line as basis. So where this projection line intersects the given line, that should be the location of the piercing point. And let's mark the location of the piercing point with a point. So let's do PO. Again, zoom in kasi baka mali yung ano nyo, no? Ma-snap nyo. So I'll zoom in para sure ako na yung intersection point yung ano. And you can see it with the tracking line. X yung symbol, which is the symbol for an intersection point. So I'll just click this one. And right now, hindi siya nakalitaw because again, points are just displayed as dots, no? So para ma-change yun, we do p-type. And traditional, di ba, usually when we did this, usually crosshair yung ginagamit natin. Pero for piercing points, may special symbol tayong ginagawa for piercing points. In in ES1, we usually mark the piercing point with a circle and a dot at the middle, no? So ganito yung mark natin for piercing point. So this is how we show piercing point. So pwedeng ang gamitin natin is, closest to that is this one, no? Yan. So, it looks like a circle with a dot. Pero, if you want, you can also use this one, itong circle with a cross. Okay lang din. I'll allow both, no? Pwede natin gamitin yan. Okay? So, just to make it a little bit clearer, I'll use this one. Circle with a cross to indicate na piercing point siya. And for this case, I think 0.1 and absolute units will work perfectly with this, I don't know, itong at ano tawag dito? DWG file. Okay? So press enter and you can see nandito yung crosshair. And of course, this is I'll change the layer, no. This should be a final answer. Piercing point. And we can label the piercing point as well. Sabihin natin this is piercing point like so. And again, final answer dapat si piercing point. Okay? So we have the piercing point at HRP. Ang gagawin na lang natin is, again, find it in FRP. So same scenario, gagawin lang natin is, we find the piercing point, this one. Tapos, project it downwards. And don't forget to zoom in para tama yung mahahanap natin na intersection point. Again, it should be this one. And let's change layers. I'll also again mark it with a point. PO for the point. And let's mark it piercing point. Okay? So now, we have this piercing point. Okay? So now we have completed all views. Okay na tayo. Okay? Now, if you notice the instruction, parang sabi niya, determine the piercing point, pero meron din siyang additional instruction that says we need to show correct visibility. Okay? So, how do we show correct visibility? Now, the theory for this, you can find sa doon sa classroom natin sa official na playlist. Ako actually yung nagdi-discuss sa piercing points and lines of intersection, no. Doon sa particular module na 'yon. Pero to put it simply, if we have, and let me use another model, or siguro pwede ko ilagay dito to the right, no. Ito. Lagay ko lang dito. Di-delete ko lang to later on. Now, suppose I have two objects. Kunwari ito. And I'll choose this one. So, say I have a cylinder. Tapos, after that, I'll also have a cube. No? Para maganyan. Tapos, we have a cylinder and a cube. And then, let's say that the viewing plane is, let's do rectangle. And I'll move this slightly. So this is our viewing plane. Okay, so ito. And let's mark this with the region. Okay. So this is a viewing plane. And itong viewing plane na to, I'll give it a little bit of transparency para lang mas makita natin. Transparency. Let's do 50%. Okay. So ito yung viewing plane natin. Tapos nandito yung object. Now what happens is if you have two objects, whoever is closer to the reference plane or the viewing plane will show up as the solid object. Ganyan. Now, the object at the back, to show that it's still existing, ang gagawin natin is, we draw hidden lines to show that there are lines at the back of the solid lines. Okay? So, what that might look like is, hindi ko alam kung kaya ko ipakita dito, no? Let's do, balik ko lang yung ribbon. And this is a preview of what you'll be doing when you learn how to do 3D, CAD. You can actually automatically create multi-view projections using the view-based na, command. And I'll say, this is right side, no? Right side ba to? Right side. Oh, sorry. Front. Okay. And let me remove the hide ko lang to, ano. So let's hide this one first. So if you look at it, parang ganito yung itsura niya. Okay? So makikita mo is the object at the front would be yung cube, yung box natin, yung rectangular prism, which is this one. And object at the back is this one, and only a portion is shown as a visible line. No? So this is the solid line. Tapos a few portion of its sides are shown as broken lines. So broken lines or hidden lines indicate that the object is hidden from view because of the objects at the front. Okay? So yun yung meaning nun. Okay? So, with that said, for us to determine whether an object is shown in its truth, shown as a hidden line or a solid line, ang gagawin lang natin is, we just measure the distance kung sino yung mas malapit. So, to do that, how do you measure the distance? You just create a projection line. So, if you imagine kung meron ka projection line here, that is perpendicular, para ganyan, and let's do the projection line. Change ko lang yung color niya, no? To, ito. So, if you have a projection line like so, ito yung projection line. If you try to measure kung sino yung unang tatamaan ng projection line mo, then you can determine kung sinong object ang nasa harap at sino yung object na nasa likod. Okay? So, it's very obvious dito, no, sa case na to, because we can see in 3D na itong cylinder is at the back and itong cube or itong rectangular prism is at the front. But if you have a case like this, if ganito yung case mo, and let's change this to the perfect. If you have a case like this, medyo mahirap ma-determine using just the line and the plane kung sino yung nasa harap or sino yung nasa likod. So what we do is, we take advantage of yung ano natin, yung projection line. Let's use the projection line. And the projection line can come from anywhere, no? So pwedeng sigurong, what if I have a projection line that looks like this? Tapos i-lengthen ko lang, titingnan ko lang kung sino yung unang tatamaan ng projection line. Kung sino yung unang tinamaan, siya yung nasa harap at that particular region. Kasi pwede naman mag-change sila ng ano, no, ng orientation. Kumbaga at one point unang tatamaan si cube, pero at another area unang tatamaan si circle. Ano bang case na pwede mangyari yun? Mahirap ipakita dito, no? It's better shown if it's lines and planes. Pero you get the point, no? Para ganyan siya. So, what we do is, balik lang tayo dito sa ano natin. Gagawin natin is, we just create projection lines. So, for example, the best way to do this is to, and let me just close the ribbon. The best way to do this is to first check the boundaries, ito and ito. Kasi dito ka magde-decide kung ano yung part na hidden and ano yung part na solid. Kasi di ba pagka kunwari, just try to imagine meron kang line that is skewering a piece of paper. If kita siya, if solid yung ped mo sa taas, then dapat it makes sense na dun sa likod, it will become hidden. Kasi kumbaga lumusot na siya sa papel eh. Tama? So, ang orientation nito would be, it's either ito yung solid, tapos ito yung hidden. Or, baliktad, ito yung solid, tapos ito naman yung hidden. Tama? Make sense? So, whenever there is a piercing point, you are bound to have a change in visibility. So, anytime there's a piercing point, mag-change tayo ng visibility. Okay? So, gagawin natin is, we can check either this point, itong apparent intersection na to between BC and 1, 2, or we can check this point, the apparent intersection between 1, 2, and AC. Doesn't really matter, it should provide you with the same information. So, let's check this one. Let's just create a projection line. If we create a projection line, you can see na unang tinamaan si plane ABC, or in this particular case, si line BC. Tama? Line BC is here. Pero line 1, 2 is still here. So, ibig sabihin, line BC is closer to the reference plane. Therefore, dapat nasa taas itong line BC na to and nasa ilalim itong si line 1, 2 or nasa likod. Okay? So, because this is now correct. Ito, from here to here, hidden dapat si line 1, 2. Pero once lumabas siya dito sa piercing point, para mag-change visibility na siya. Okay? So, from this point onwards, papunta dito, we should now have a solid line. And we can use the final answer layer. Ang gagawin ko is, from here to here, this now becomes a solid line. Ulitin ko lang. Yan. And let me just increase the thickness, no? Para mag-match ako ng thickness sa given. I think 0.5 ata to. Nag-match na ba? Parang ganun? Or masyado makapal yung 0.5. Maybe 0.35. Parang ganun. So, yan. So, you should have something that looks like this. This is what our final answer should look like, no? So, parang, can you imagine this in space? Based on the hidden lines. So, imagine na from sa harap, magpipierce si 1, 2, papasok siya dito, then past this piercing point, nandun na siya sa likod. If you're viewing it from the HRP. Or since HRP siya, parang nakatingin kayo sa taas, no? 1, 2, from the top, it pierces the plane ABC, pierces at the piercing point, then lulusot siya dun sa ilalim naman ng plane. So, kaya hidden siya dito. Okay? So, now, ang gagawin natin is we've completed the visibility or we have shown the correct visibility dito sa part na to. We need to show the correct visibility sa part na to. So, when you are assessing for visibility, it changes or it is independent of the view, no? So, hindi pwedeng kung kunwari, you look at this one and you've determined na 1, 2 is above ABC at this area. So, ibig ba sabihin dito at this area above din si 1, 2? Hindi necessarily, no? You'll have to check again the visibility. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is let's draw another projection line. Again, nandito tayo, we can check using this one, draw a projection line, or we can check using this one, draw a projection line. When you're doing this, a common mistake for the students is that when they're doing this, they check for, this is a line AB versus line 1, 2. Pero ang ginagawa ng ibang students is, pinoproject nila tapos tinitingnan nila yung plane itself, not the specific line. So when you're projecting this, kailangan yung line yung ino-observe nyo. The two lines in question. Which is in our case, line AB and line 1, 2. Okay? So, eto, nagkataon naman na ang unang tinamaan na line is line AB. So, which means that AB is on top. Pero, let's get another example, no? Kunwari ito, line AC. Ganon din, no? Pero may cases kasi na, kumbaga, if it were a different orientation, pagka pinoject ko upwards, unang tinamaan si line AC. Pero, I'm not checking line AC and 1, 2. I'm checking between line AB and 1, 2. So, posible na you can make a false conclusion if you just base it on plane and the line. So, kailangan when you're checking, always line and a line tayo. Line versus another line. So, again, line AB versus line 1, 2. Sino yung unang tatamaan? If I create a projection line, unang tinamaan si line AB. Which means that line AB is on top. Which means na itong portion of line 1, 2 will be at the back. Okay? So, nasa likod siya. So, ngayon, pag lagpas siya dito sa piercing point, it now changes visibility. So, this portion right here, from this piercing point, papunta dito, will now be a solid line. Okay? And let me just redo that. This portion, papunta dito, will be a solid line. So, it should look something like this. Okay? So, parang sa orientation na to, it starts, line 1, 2 starts at the back. Tapos, pinipierce niya yung plane. Tapos, lilitaw siya sa harap after piercing the plane. Okay? It looks like this. Okay? Again, same conclusion lang din naman makukuha natin if we were to choose the other side, no? Kunwari, if we were to parang check for correct visibility between AC and 1-2. And this is perfect pala to, no? AC and 1-2. Kasi if you draw it, kunwari ganyan, draw a projection line, unang tinamaan si 1-2. Tama? So meaning 1-2 should be on top. AC is still here, no? Nandito pa si AC. Hindi nga, this is BC. AC is still here. So, ibig sabihin, pag pinroject ko pataas yan, pag ganyan, 1-2 yung unang tinamaan, 1-2 is closer. So, that's why 1-2 here is a solid line. Okay? So, you can make the same conclusion even if you start at the, or even if yung kabilang intersection point yung pinili nyo, or apparent intersection yung pinili nyo. Okay? Malinaw ba? So, it doesn't matter kung ano yung pinili nyo as long as you have made a conclusion on one end, you can now make the other conclusion based on the changing visibility na rule, no? So, whenever you pass through a piercing point, you will need to change visibility. Okay? But take note that this can get a little bit confusing kapag meron pa kayong plane on top of the two planes that are already existing. Pag ganyan, medyo mas complicated na yon yung correct visibility niya kasi it's on top of the other plane pero it's behind the other plane that is nasa pinakaharap pa. So pag ganon, you can make false conclusions because of that. No? Pero I think we have one plate na ganon, no? Parang tatlong planes yung magkasunod-sunod. Tapos if you just use the projection line technique, you will make some false conclusions because parang nasa harap siya ng isang plane, pero yun pala nasa likod nung another plane pa. So that can get confusing. So baka hindi ko na isasama yung ganun, no, na cases wherein may tatlong planes pa na involved. Sorry, hindi ko naman malakasan. Hidden lines? Kahit ano, basta adjacent. So you can move from, kunwari ito, di ba ang ginawa natin is we moved here, pero pwede actually natin gawin is dito tayo nag-move downwards tayo, no? That can also still work. Kasi if you try, kunwari ito yung ginawa natin kanina, di ba? Unang tinamaan was line BC, pero if you project it here as well, unang tatamaan is line BC pa rin as opposed to line 1-2. So it will always work, no? Regardless of the plane, as long as it's an adjacent, dapat adjacent na reference plane or parang 1 view away. Okay? So that's how you find piercing points using an additional ARP, and that's the intuitive approach. For sometimes, you are asked to get the piercing point without creating an additional view. And for this, we'll have to use what we call as a special cutting plane, no? So, si special cutting plane method is, we are imagining na our line is contained in a plane and that plane cuts, or that cutting plane cuts our original given plane into a segment. Now, where the segment is cut, it will pass through the intersection point of the or it will pass through the piercing point. So, I think I've shown this clearer. Let me open Google Classroom now. It's here. Hindi ko pa ina-upload. I'll upload it later, no? Para siguro dito. We can, I'll just skim through the YouTube video, no? It's piercing point. Tata yun.
X here is a long line.
Uh-huh. Yan. This is the how the piercing or how the special cutting plane works, no? So, again, we have line JF, kunwari ito si line JF, tapos ito si ABC. Now, ang imagination natin is that JF is contained in a special cutting plane. Okay? Now, if we allowed JF to cut our plane ABC, parang mag-iiwan siya ng trace, no? So, kumbaga, parang yun yung line kung saan kinut off mo or sinection mo si plane ABC. Okay? So, this is exactly what it looks like when a plane interacts with another plane, no? Parang line of intersection yung lalabas. Pero if you just try to imagine it in real life, para kang may knife cutting through this plane, and when you cut it, it gives you the line where it was cut. Parang ganon. Okay? So, that line is line XY. So, ito yung parang trace ng special cutting plane mo. Now, the theory is that when this trace right here also passes to the piercing point. So, if we allow the this trace right here, quote unquote this trace, itong XY, to intersect with line JF, then we are able to find the piercing point. Okay? So, ito yung imagination niya. So, the cutting plane is arbitrary. Pagka inikot mo yung plane na to, ang mangyayari lang naman is magbabago lang naman kung saan niya ikinakat si ABC. But as long as it passes through or it contains line JF, the XY line, yung parang trace na kinikreate niya, will always intersect JF at the piercing point. Okay? So which means that we can create an arbitrary, an imaginary special cutting plane along this one right here. So pwede ang imagination natin is that the easiest way to do this is to imagine as if you can start whether sa HRP or sa FRP, doesn't really matter. For this scenario, let's imagine na si 3-4 contains a special cutting plane that is shown as an edge view. Okay? So, naka-edge view yung special cutting plane niya dito. So, kung naka-edge view yung special cutting plane niya, it leaves behind the trace XY at this particular location, or let's call it another name, no? I'll say WV. So, may point W ka dito. This is how, and ito naman is point B. Again, no need to name this, no? I'm just naming this para lang mas for visualization purposes. So, parang si special cutting plane mo, again, we are imagining na si special cutting plane is an edge view containing line 3-4. So, it looks like just a line as well, no? So, pag pinutol niya si line ABC, si X line, or si plane XYZ, I mean, it leaves behind the trace WV. Okay? Now, ang gagawin natin is, ipoproject natin si line WV, which is, nandito, this is along XY, so nandito siya. And ito naman, si V is along YZ, so nandito siya. So, if we try to draw this, nandito yung line WV. This is line WV. Tama? That's your line WV. So, kumbaga, makikita mo exactly kung saan pinutol si W or saan pinutol si plane XYZ using the special cutting plane na we viewed as an edge view dito sa taas. So, dito siya pinutol. Now, if you take a look back at our if you take a look back at this, we have noted na itong trace na to, again, it always intersects the given line at exactly the piercing point. Which means that, pagka hinanap natin itong intersection ng line WV with the given line 3-4, yun na yung piercing point niya. Okay? So, this is now the piercing point. This one. And now, we can project it upwards like so. So, ito na din yung piercing point onto the top view. Like so. So, it becomes extremely easy, no, to find the piercing point without any additional view if you use this method. Kasi, ang gagawin mo lang is you just find a view. Ito. mark the apparent intersection point of the line with two of the edges. Tapos, i-bring down mo lang. Tapos, hanapin mo yung line na to. Tapos, ipapa-intersect mo with 3, 4. And just to show you, I'll use a different color here. It can also work regardless of the view you chose, no? So kunwari, ang pipiliin kong view naman is FRP. So I'm imagining na yung special cutting plane ko is edge view at FRP. So parang pinutol ko tong plane na to using a special cutting plane that is in edge view in FRP. So mangyayari is dito siya magli-leave ng mark sa plane. Tama? Ito. And let's call this new marks as WB. Ano bang pwede? L and M. So this is L and ito naman is si M. So it leaves a mark, no? Mark L dito and mark M. So this line LM, this is the sort of trace. Iniiwan niya doon sa plane natin. So this L is along XY. So dito siya. M is along XZ. So nandito. Tama? And notice how pagka inano nyo siya, this is L, this is M. Notice how you still find the same piercing point. Ito pa rin yung piercing point nyo. So it doesn't really matter kung ano yung pinili nyo. It will always find the same piercing point. And let's make this as a final answer. No? Okay? So again, if you get confused by this method, just look at itong ano no, parang video, itong modules. Again, it's uploaded sa classroom natin. And you can find it will help you visualize kung paano nagwo-work yung special cutting plane method. No? Okay? Pero operationally, sobrang dali lang niya, no? Ang gagawin nyo lang is magpo-project. Then, you can find the point at the bottom or at the top depending on saan kayo nagsimula sa HRP or sa FRP. And from there, pwede nyo siya i-project. Again, you don't need to do both, no? Hindi nyo kailangan gawin itong si WV and LM. You just need to do one. I'm just showing it here para makita nyo na regardless of where you start, whether you start from FRP or you start from HRP, mahanap mo pa rin si piercing point. Okay? Now, the good thing about this method is that meron ka ng existing lines for you to make the projections. May existing lines, may existing projection lines ka na for you to make the conclusions about its correct visibility. Kasi if you look at itong point W and point B, itong projection lines nila, ito na rin yung gagamitin mo pang confirm kung whether the line is closer or the plane is closer or the edge of the plane is closer. Tama? Kasi if you remember, ang ginawa natin dito was ginamit natin yung parang apparent intersection tapos pinroject natin pataas or to the right or pababa or basta as long as it's an adjacent plane. Tapos chinek natin kung sino yung unang tatamaan. So pwede ito, i-recycle na natin. Itong point W na to, itong projection. Let's follow the line. So we're checking who is closer. Is XW closer or is 3, 4 closer? Again, XY pala I mean. Is XY closer or is 3, 4 closer? Again, it's always when you're checking for correct visibility, you are checking for a line versus another line. Okay? So XY, 3, 4. Sundan natin yung line na to. Unang tinamaan si XY. Tama? So ibig sabihin, XY is closer. So ito, 3, 4 should be behind or at the bottom. Because 3, 4 is at the bottom, then therefore, tama lang na hidden itong line na to. So kung hidden to, it crosses the piercing point. Past the piercing point, it should now change visibility. So dapat, this one from here to here, and let's change. From here to here, it should now be a solid line. Okay? So solid siya na ganyan. Right? Again, same conclusion if you chose this point, no? So kunwari ito, this is ZY versus 3, 4. If you project it downwards, unang tinamaan si 3, 4. Meaning 3, 4 is closer. That's why solid line si 3, 4 dito. Sa case na to. Let me just zoom in. Hindi masyadong nag-meet, no? So, ibig lang sabihin nun is hindi ganun ka again because there are some approximations to this PDF, no, PDF file. That's why hindi totally nag-meet. Pero if this were done completely in AutoCAD, dapat nag-meet exactly at the same point na tong 2 points na to. Okay, right? So again, you'll have to make the another set of projection lines if you want to check the visibility on the other views. No? Again, independent yung mga views. Hindi ibig sabihin na if I've concluded na nasa taas si 3, 4 dito, then dapat nasa taas din si 3, 4 dito. You'll have to do that check again. So let's check using this line, the projection line ni M. This is between, again, always remember, when you are doing these projections, you are checking two lines. This particular projection line, ang chine-check ko is 3, 4 versus XZ. Okay? 3, 4 versus XZ. If I project it, unang tinamaan si 3, 4. Tama? Because XZ is still here. Ito yung case na sinasabi ko sa inyo na palating nagkakamali yung mga students. No? So this is a common mistake is that the students are checking between XZ and 3, 4. Tapos nung inangat nila, unang tinamaan si plane, which is this line. Tama? So, they make the false conclusion that, okay, so ibig sabihin si plane dapat nasa taas. Which is wrong, no? Kasi you're checking XZ and not YZ. So, pagka pinroject ko to, this is YZ, I'm not checking that. So, continue lang ako. 3, 4 yung una kong tinamaan. XZ is still here. Okay? So, always remember, when you're checking for correct visibility, remember the two lines that you are comparing. Okay? Two lines that you are comparing, in this case, XZ and 3, 4. Unang tinamaan si 3, 4. 3, 4 is here. XZ is nandito pa sa taas. So, which means that 3, 4 is closer. Therefore, dapat 3, 4 should be a solid line here. Okay? So, 3, 4 is a solid line. And you have your final answer that looks like this. Okay? Again, you should be able to visualize this, no? You can see na C3 is coming from the top. Tapos, it pierces the plane up until this piercing point. Tapos, from the piercing point, the line is coming from the top from this point 4 right here. It comes down, pierces 3, 4, tapos lulusot na siya papunta dun sa ilalim or sa likod. Kaya siya, hidden line na siya dito. Tapos dito naman, 3, 4 starts at the back kasi front view to. So at the back, papunta siya sa harap. Kaya siya hidden line muna dito. Then it pierces the plane. Lulusot na siya. And because it pierces the plane, now litaw na siya dito sa harap. Kaya kita na siya as a solid line in front of the plane XYZ past this piercing point. And we should label the piercing point as well, no? We should label this as PP. And this is now PP as well. Okay? So that's how you get the piercing point. Alright, malinaw? Madali lang? Very easy to do. Again, you just need to project yung dalawang apparent intersection point between the edge. Project it downwards. Tapos kung saan sila mag-meet, as projected, yung parang quote-unquote trace na sinasabi ko, then therefore, you can find the piercing point without creating any additional views. No? Okay? Okay, so that's between a line and a plane. What happens now if we check between a plane and a plane? Okay? When you have two overlapping, this is case 1 where you have two overlapping planes, and this is case 2 where you don't have two overlapping planes, no? This is a case where you have two overlapping planes, and there are multiple ways to how these two overlapping planes interact, and it depends on which lines pierces which other plane, no? Kasi kunwari, I'll just draw it on the board. Simple example lang. Using two planes, Parang ganyan. Depending on how it interacts, I can create several scenarios, no? So, for example, ito. Okay. So, one scenario could be, here's a first scenario wherein the plane interacts with the other plane in such a way na nagka-create sila ng butas, no? Parang ganyan. Parang ganyan. This is one scenario. Na-imagine nyo ba yung plane? So, parang pinipierce niya yung isang plane, creating a hole papunta sa likod. Tama? Now, try to imagine, if I change the piercing points, kunwari, hindi ko pinierce siya dyan. Ang ginawa ko is, I pierced it, kunwari dito. So, same scenario, pero totally different yung itsura niya. Oh, wait lang. So, same planes lang to, no? Pero, notice how sobrang iba ng itsura nila. Parang interlocking plane sila. Naka-ganon, no? Naka-interlock sila. Pero, I didn't change any of the edges. Okay? So, from kanina na parang one plane is pierces the other plane entirely, ito naman, this is a scenario where parang nag-interlock yung two planes na to. So, you can have for different lines, or sorry, for different, or for a set of lines for two planes, you can have totally different scenarios based on how the line of intersection is oriented. Okay? So, ito actually yung critical point, this one. And if you really think about it, etong mga endpoints ng LOI natin, this is what we call as a line of intersection. Etong endpoints ng LOI are actually just piercing points. Okay? So you can imagine that this line, and let's call it, kunwari, ito si ABC to, no? And let's call this as 1, 2, 3. Okay? In this particular scenario, parang si AB is a line that pierces line 1, 2, 3 at this piercing point. Tama? Tapos, dito naman, this is a scenario wherein si line 1, 2 pierces line ABC at this point. Tapos, yung two endpoints na yung pag kinonect mo, yun na yung LOI niya. Okay? So, that's how you try to imagine ito. So, for us to be able to determine kung ano yung, kung nasaan si LOI, kailangan natin i-check bawat line if it makes a piercing point to the other plane. Okay? So in our example, if you look at our example, no? If you look at this example, meron tayong two planes. Each plane has 6 edges. So dapat mag-check tayo ng all 6 edges. Tapos, i-isolate natin siya, treat one edge as if it were a line, and check if it has a piercing point with the opposite plane. Okay? So, isa-isahin natin. Pero, we can make some, anong tawag dito? Pwede tayo mag-eliminate ng some of the edges. Kasi kunwari, AB in this particular view is not seemingly overlapping with plane 1, 2, 3. So, we can immediately eliminate AB kasi wala siyang chance na mag-pierce. Kasi di ba the only way you can pierce is if nag-overlap ka talaga. Like for example, this one, 1, 2 overlaps with ABC. Therefore, it has a chance to pierce the plane. Same case dito, 3, 4 is overlapping with XYZ. Therefore, it has a chance to pierce. Eto, si AB does not have a chance to pierce. Meron pa bang isang line na ganun din yung scenario? Wala siyang chance to pierce. AC, tama? AC here. Although nag-overlap siya dito, pero at this point, at this view, hindi siya nag-overlap. So, meaning, wala ding chance siya. Meron pang isa. 2, 3, no? 2, 3 here and here does not seem to overlap. Therefore, pwede natin siyang eliminate. So, from 6 edges, na-eliminate na natin siya down to just 2 edges. Down to just 3 edges. So, ang kailangan lang natin i-check is 1, 2, 1, 3, and BC. Yung tatlo lang na yon. Okay? So, pili na lang tayo. We need to check all three of them. If we found 2, then enough na yon. Kasi for any, if you are given 2 planes, there will only be 2 piercing points talaga. Okay? So, yung 2 piercing points na yon will define the endpoints of the lines of intersection or the LOI. So, pili lang tayo. Let's just do it clockwise siguro, or counterclockwise. So, let's start with 1, 2 first. 1, 2, we treat 1, 2 as if it were a line. Then check if it has a piercing point with our given plane. So, without any additional views, ang gagawin lang natin is, if you still remember, the way we do it is, we take the apparent intersection points of 1, 2 with the plane ABC. So, ito siya. Tama? So, we bring it down dito. This is along AC. So, nandito siya. Ito naman, this is along BC. So, nandito siya. Tama? And we check. And notice, swerte agad tayo. Kasi, the line that we've created, yung parang quote-unquote trace natin, where the cutting plane makes a mark on our given plane, already creates a piercing point, which is this one. Kasi nag-intersect sila. Which means that we already have found one of the piercing points, which is this one. And I'll make this a final answer. Tapos, project it upwards. Ito yung piercing point niya. And then, you can zoom in as well, no, para ma-ensure na tama yung placement. Ayan, mali nga yung placement ko. Okay? So, yan yung piercing points natin. So, let's call this as PP1. And we just need PP2 para mahanap yung LOI. Okay? Okay, I'll just change this to final answer. Okay? Now, let's check the next line. Ang next line na pwede natin check is BC. Tama? So, we've done 1, 2. Let's check BC. Kung saan yung piercing point, if it has 1. So, ang maganda sa method na to, no, when you're doing clockwise is that you can recycle points, no? Or you can recycle projection lines. Kasi itong projection line na to can also be used para sa line BC naman, if line BC is acting as if it were a line. Okay? So, line BC, we are imagining it as if it were a line. So, ngayon, ipo-project natin siya. Ngayon naman, si 1, 2, 3 naman yung nag-act as a plane. Always remember that, no? Kailangan yung ma-isolate sila. Although they are two distinct planes, we are isolating each edge as if it were a line, tapos yung opposite na plane as the plane naman siya. So, kumbaga nag-change yung behavior nila. By doing so, we are able to determine kung sino ba talaga yung edge yung nagko-cause ng piercing points doon sa kabilang sa opposite plane niya. Okay? So, ito, BC is acting as the line. So, magka-create tayo ng projection line and we can recycle this one. This is along 1, 2. Kasi the plane now is 1, 2, 3, no? So, this is along 1, 2. So, hanggang dito siya. Okay? And I'll just trim it down para lang maalala ko. Oops, hindi ko pala matitrim. Ito, i-move ko lang to para lang maalala ko. Hanggang 1, 2 lang siya. Okay? I'll make mental note. Hanggang 1, 2. Tapos ito naman, BC. From this point, bring it down. So, I'm projecting it to the plane. So, 1, 3, no? So, 1, 3 is this one. Then, tapos, i-connect ko sila. And I can see that the trace that I've created, again, yung parang mark na kinrate niya, onto the plane 1, 2, 3, does not intersect with BC. So, ibig sabihin, walang piercing point si BC onto the plane 1, 2, 3. Okay? So, since wala siyang piercing point, I'll proceed to the next na candidate. Okay? So, the next candidate would be, eto naman, si 1, 3 with plane ABC. And this is the last candidate actually, no? So, we are sure na si 1, 3 right now would produce the piercing point. Okay? So, eto, 1-3 is now the line. Si 1-3 yung nag-act as the line. Plane ABC is acting as the plane. Again, always isolate. Kailangan you remember kung sino yung nag-act as the line and sino yung nag-act as a plane. 1-3 acting as the line. So, I can use this one. Bring it down. And ibababa ko siya hanggang BC. Tama? Kasi the ABC is now the plane. So, ibababa ko siya hanggang BC. Hanggang dito. Tapos, next is this one. 1-3 and AC. I'll zoom in para lang mas malinaw. And, it intersects this one. Sa AC tayo. Tama? Again, you always need to remember kung saan yung ipinoproject. Always remember kung sino yung nag-aacta sa line and sino yung nag-aacta sa plane. So, a common mistake students make is that, kunwari ito, you are treating 1-3 as the line, ABC as the plane. Pero, ang ginagawa nila is, when they project this downward, pinoproject nila papunta sa 1-3. Pinoproject nila papunta dito sa 1-3. Thinking that 1-3 is part of the plane. Tapos si AB or si BC yung chine-check natin as the line. So, always remember that. Kailangan may mental note kayo lagi kung sino yung nag-act as the line and sino yung nag-act as the plane. Kung sino yung nag-act as the plane, yun doon tayo nagpo-project ng points natin. And si line is there to check if there is an intersection with the trace that we have created. Okay? So ngayon, ang proper way, dapat, since we are treating 1-3 as the line, and the plane is ABC, dapat ito, we should project it papunta sa plane which is edge AC. So, dapat hanggang dito. And then, we connect it with the first point na ginawa natin, which is this one. Connect it with this. And, you can see, it intersects with the line 1-3. Yung chine-check natin, which is this one. Nag-intersect siya at this point. So, now we have the second piercing point. That's the second piercing point. And now, pwede ko nang i-project pataas. This one, I'll project it upwards. And this is another piercing point. So, notice how I worked on this area. Tapos, I found the piercing point dito sa baba and just projected it upwards. No? Pero pwede din naman opposite. I worked on this area or this particular view, found the piercing points here, and work my way backwards to get the piercing points here. Pwede rin yun. Doesn't really matter kung ano yung reference plane na nagwo-work on kayo. Kasi, again, it will always produce the same piercing points if you did it correctly, no? Okay? So, hindi nagmamatter. So, hindi necessary na sa HRP ka lagi nag-start. Sa BC? Sorry, sa 1-3 dapat. Should be 1-3. So hanggang, sorry, thank you for the correction. Dapat hanggang dito. Should be hanggang 1-3. Yan. So 1-3 siya. Ang nakuha natin is 1-2, 1-2, and 1-3. So hanggang dyan siya. Okay? So now that we have these two lines, pwede na tayong i-connect siya. This one and this one. Let's connect din to. Let me zoom in. And I'll say this is now LOI, the line of intersection. And I'll also create a text here. And this is also LOI. So I have now found my LOI. Now, is this complete? Or may kulang pa? Ano sa tingin yung kulang? Yung correct visibility, no? Tama? Kasi we need to check the correct visibility. Now, you might be thinking, hindi ba madugo to? Kasi parang sobrang daming lines. So, if you think about it, parang may 6 lines ka. You take it 2 at a time. So, parang, tama ba? 6 take it 2 at a time. Parang 4. 4 yung gagawin mong check. So, AC versus 1-2, AC versus 1-3. Tapos, check ka din dito, BC versus 1-2, BC versus 1-3. And you check 1-3. Ayun, na-exhaustive list natin yun. So, parang gano'n, no? So, marami kang i-check. Pero there's a secret, hindi naman secret, pero there's a trick to this, no? This is an algorithm that you can use para ma-determine nyo kung paano yung correct visibility. And it entails parang changing visibility based on critical points. So what we define as critical points are whenever you have an apparent intersection like this is a critical point. A piercing point is a critical point. Yun lang yung only two. So whenever you pass through a critical point, mag-change visibility kayo. So yun yung algorithm, and I'll show you how this can be used para sobrang bilis ng pag-create nyo ng correct visibility. So again, a critical point is defined as either an apparent intersection, so something like this. This is an apparent intersection. This is also an apparent intersection, and a piercing point. So ito, this is a piercing point. So whenever you pass through either of those two things, mag-change visibility tayo. So now, ang gagawin lang natin, we just need to check one. We check one, then after knowing the proper visibility or the correct visibility of one line, i-apply na natin yung algorithm para mabuo yung lahat ng correct lines. So for example, I'll show you what I mean, no? So kunwari ito, I'm checking between AC and 1-2. So this is an arbitrary choice. I'm just starting here, but you can start anywhere you want. So 1-2 and AC. Again, 1-2 and AC. When you're checking correct visibility, pair of lines lagi siya. So 1-2 and AC. Pagka binaba nyo, unang tatamaan si AC. Tama? Nandito si AC. 1-2 is still here. So meaning AC is closer. So AC should be on top. Since AC is on top of 1-2, ito should be a solid line. So now that we know that this is a solid line, the algorithm goes like this. So this is solid. Ito solid siya. So if it's solid, whenever you reach a critical point, change visibility. So solid, hidden, solid, hidden, solid, hidden. Okay? So it's as simple as that, no? So sobrang dali lang sundan kung sino yung solid lines at sino yung hidden lines using the algorithm. Again, we started with solid ito. So you can start here solid, tas hidden dito. Or pwede rin counterclockwise. Doesn't really matter. It should give you the same result. No? So solid, hidden. So ito, solid. This should be solid. Tapos hidden. Tapos solid naman dito again. Solid. Tapos hidden, and you start and you come back from your starting point. Okay? So that's the easiest way to do it. And from there, you can now see how the plane looks like, no? How the plane looks. Para siyang yung first scenario natin na parang yung plane is pinipierce niya yung other plane. Okay? Creating this LOI. Okay? Ito yung tinuturo ko sa students, no, na parang using this method, yung algorithm, because it works most of the time and it's easy to remember. Plus, isa lang yung kailangan ko i-check. Tapos I can use the algorithm to determine the broken lines. Pero some students, and this is what I used to do then when I was an undergrad taking ES1, some students just use their imagination, no? What makes sense to them. So I already know the piercing point. If for example, kunwari lang, ang ginawa ko is, nag-check ako dito, BC and, ano ba to? BC and 1-2. I check BC versus 1-2. Check, follow the lines. And unang tinamaan si 1-2. BC is still here. So meaning, BC, wait, sorry, ulit. Unang tinamaan si 1-2. So which means that 1-2 is a solid line. So kaya solid siya dito. Now, you can use your imagination, no? If this is solid, parang hindi nagme-make sense na magiging solid din to. Kasi in space, if you think about it, parang there's no way for this to become a solid based on how the planes would be oriented. Okay? And you can use this to your advantage, no? Because this has a sort of parang 3D element to it. you can already determine through imagination lang if the interaction makes sense or not. More often than not, if you have a solution and parang automatic fina-flag ng brain nyo na parang hindi tama yung itsura, you trust your instincts, no? Ibig sabihin, baka may something wrong. Like for example, if I draw this line, I'll just make a random line here, no? Kunwari, if I draw this line, tapos I erase this one, tapos change this, tapos nakaganyan siya. Kunwari ganyan, right off the bat, parang, alam nyo agad, hindi nagme-make sense, di ba? Parang, paano mangyayari na kita to, pero kita din to at the same time? Di ba? So, parang yung brains nyo automatically flags this as an incorrect answer kasi there's no way for this to become correct, no? And it can be as simple as just one line, no? Kunwari, kanina, let's change it back, parang ganyan. Ganito yung kanina, no? So, for example, nagkamali kayo, one line you mistakenly made a solid instead of a broken line. Parang ganyan. Pagka sa start pa lang, makikita nyo to, alam nyo agad, yung area na parang matitrigger yung brains nyo to think na parang may mali, somewhere dito. Tama? Pag nakita nyo, kung tinitingnan nyo siya dito, you know that everything makes sense here. You know that the 3D dimensionality of it, you know that this part of this plane is in front, this one is at the back, pero dito, you can't tell kung sino yung nasa harap, sino yung nasa likod. Parang automatic, parang may something wrong dito. So, sometimes students do that technique, no? Parang ang gagawin nila is they determine one line, tapos from that one line, kaya nila ma-decide na parang based on how planes look in space, mas nagme-make sense na ito yung solid, ito yung hidden, etc. etc. Tapos later on, tsaka na sila mag-check ng correct visibility. When I was in undergrad, ito yung technique na nire-rely ko, no? I just look at the planes, I check one, then parang imagine ko lang in space, ano ba yung pinaka nagme-make sense na orientation based on those two intersection points. Again, some students, hindi nila readily na-imagine yung planes in space, no? And I understand kasi it can be a sort of parang magiging fault na siya ng optical illusions, no? And optical illusions are quite hard to, there's a condition for it, no? Nakalimutan ko yung name ng condition, pero it's a known condition wherein some students, it's no fault of your own, hindi nyo kaya talagang ma-rewire yung brain nyo kasi we have evolved for millions of years, no, to recognize patterns. And whenever there are patterns that are parang contradictory or parang may optical illusion siya, minsan, hindi natin nare-rewire yung brain natin. So for cases like that na hindi nyo talaga na-imagine, I suggest the methodical approach, yung mga yung kumbaga yung algorithm na approach pwedeng gamitin nyo or yung parang projection line approach. You can do all the projection lines. Check nyo na lang kung sino yung nasa taas and sino yung nasa baba. Pero again, always take a look at your final answer. Look at it. Try to check if parang nagme-make sense ba siya. If merong something sa brains nyo that is telling you parang something is off. Something doesn't make sense. Trust your instincts. Probably there is something wrong. Okay? So, before I proceed, siguro it's a good time to show this, illusion. I always show this illusion, no? Kasi this is a good way of demonstrating na sobrang hirap i-rewire yung brain nyo. So, take a look at this. Is it spinning left or right? Sa akin, para siyang nagsispin to the left. Pero meron bang nakikita ng spinning to the right siya? Meron spinning to the right, no? And if you think about it, tama tayo parehas. It can be spinning to the left or spinning to the right. Pero what happens is, if you have one imagination kung spinning to the left na yung nakita nyo, sobrang hirap i-rewire para makita nyo yung spinning to the right. Parang medyo impossible nga siya eh. So it takes a bit of time. Minsan ginagawa ko, nag-blink-blink na lang ako. Pero sobrang satisfying pag nakita nyo yung other side, no? Parang, kailangan pipilitin ko. Left kasi una ko nakita. Try ko tingnan yung naka-right siya. Ang hirap. Hindi ko magawa ngayon. So, ang nakikita ko lang, left lang lagi. Never ko siyang mabaliktad, no, na pa-right. Pero, pagka nag-change siya, makikita nyo agad na, okay, nakita ko na, yung to the right na siya. Paano ko ginawa yun? Wait lang, ginawa ko guys. Mahirap, hindi ko magawa. So anyway, parang ganun siya, no? So ES1 is like that, no? Because if you notice, etong spinning ballerina kasi has no dimension, no? Parang 2D shape lang talaga siya. Wala siyang shadows to give us a clue kung ano yung depth perception. Walang ganun. So it's the same as this one. 2D lang kasi to. They are just 2D lines. Walang shadows to tell us kung sino yung nasa harap, sino yung nasa likod. Kaya it's not your fault kung hindi nyo siya na-imagine in 3D space. Okay? Pero again, kailangan talaga, if you practice a lot, then you can parang train your brain to see objects in 3D space, no? But again, it requires a little bit of practice. There's a game, ano ba yung mobile game? May mobile app dito na para siyang isometric game siya na parang pwede mong i-rotate around in space tapos hanapin mo yung patterns and it gives you sort of practice kung paano nag-rotate in space yung mga lines and planes. Forgot the name. Fun game yun eh. Wait lang ha. Let me try to remember the game. Poly something game. Is it Poly? Poly Optical Illusion mobile app. Ito nga ata, PolyArt. PolyArt nga ata. Oo. Wait lang ha. Ito nga ata yun. PolyArt puzzle app. It's right now pwede tayong mag-break muna, no? Para pero while we're on the break, hanapin ko yung game para ito ba yun? Okay, i-pause ko muna yung recording, no? Let's take a short break, 10 minutes siguro. Alright, so we're done with case 1 wherein yung mga planes natin are overlapping. Pero, what happens when our planes are not overlapping, no? So, kunwari, meron tayong ganito. How do we now determine kung nasaan yung line of intersection nila if the two planes were to be expanded, no, or extended? Kasi again, in ES1, the planes are just plane segments, no, that represents a larger plane. Kumbaga, representations lang siya of a larger plane, and those larger planes can be extended to infinity, and when they extend to infinity, we can find what we call as a direction, no? And that direction encompasses all of the possible points that can be made when the two lines intersect or when the two planes intersect one another, given that they are extensible. Okay? So, the way we do it is it's similar to how we did this one. Parang nagkaroon tayo ng special cutting plane na pinutol natin siya. Pero this time, instead of just one special cutting plane, ang gagawin natin is we make two special cutting planes. Okay? So, the two special cutting planes, ang goal lang niya is to find I think it's better if I show the video, no? Kasi nandun yung visualization. So, I'll just show, I think it's part 2 yata. Ganito. So, you can watch this video on your own din, no? Pero parang ganito siya. Um, the special cutting plane is this one. Ito yung dalawang special cutting plane natin. And the teal and magenta planes are the two planes in question. Now, if you extend the two planes in question, you will produce an expanded plane, and they will meet at a particular line of intersection. Now, what you do is you take a special cutting plane. When you take the special cutting plane, what happens is that it leaves a trace along both of the given planes. So ngayon, ang gagawin mo lang is once you found that trace, you find the intersection of those traces to find the endpoints of this line of intersection. Now, this line of intersection is, depending on the special cutting plane that you use, pwedeng magbago yung endpoints na to. Pero since it's you are imagining it as an extended line or it's just a direction, then you place an arrowhead to signify that it is an extending line. So posible kasi na kunwari binago mo lang yung special cutting plane mo, pwede ang nahanap mong isang endpoint is somewhere here, but it will still lie in the same direction. Itong direction na to. Okay? So that's the special cutting plane. Now for the special cutting plane, notice how ito, hindi naman necessarily parallel yung special cutting plane. So it's not oriented in any particular way. Pero usually when we do it in ES1, para mas convenient siya, especially when you're using your sliding triangles, usually ginagawang parallel itong special cutting planes na to. Okay? So gagawin siyang parallel lang, and it's oriented almost always parang horizontal siya. It's oriented horizontal. But there are cases wherein you want to orient it at a different orientation kasi the particular orientation that you've chose is has a solution that is outside of the page. May mga ganong cases kasi, so pwede mo siyang i-reorient para makahanap ka ng isang solution that fits within the borders. Okay? So it takes a little bit of trial and error, pero at the start pwedeng arbitrary lang. You can choose an arbitrary set of special cutting planes. So ang gagawin natin dito, again, similar dito where you can work either sa HRP and FRP, pwede rin dito, you can make the special cutting plane whether you do it at HRP or FRP, doesn't really matter. You will still find the same solution. Now, just to guide us dito sa special cutting plane method, ang gagawin ko is I'll color it differently though. I'll call CP1 as, or I'll color CP1 with a different color than CP2. So, cutting plane 1 and cutting plane 2. Parang ganito, no? Kasi again, they produce different marks, and we need to be vigilant para alam natin kung nasaan yung or kung which lines came from which cutting plane. Kasi it will matter, no? A lot of students will make the mistake, especially pagka when this is done in pen and paper, wherein isa lang naman yung color ng pencil natin. Minsan, nagkakalituan, no? Which points belong to which cutting plane, and because of that, nagkakamali doon sa magiging final answer. So, I'll just start FRP. Again, doesn't really matter. I'll start FRP. And I'll make a cutting plane. I'll color this as yellow. And I'll say na si cutting plane na to, this is cutting plane number 1. Again, it's an arbitrary orientation. If this was done in pen and paper, parang minsan ang ginagawa na lang is to just make it parallel. Pero I'll do this. Cutting plane 1. This is cutting plane 1. Again, I'm imagining na meron akong cutting plane that is edge view dun sa taas. Tapos parang pinuputol ko yung or kinakat ko yung dalawang planes ko. So I'm cutting this plane. I'm also cutting this plane. So it should leave behind a trace, which is this trace right here. Ito and ito. Tama? So we can project that trace dun sa taas. So dyan. So that is my trace. Tapos ito naman, punta dito. And check. Okay? Now, ang gagawin ko is, itong traces na to, i-extend natin siya. So, we extend it, and we allow this to meet. Where they meet, that is the first sort of endpoint. No? Doon sa imagination natin, ito yung isang endpoint produced by a single cutting plane. Okay? So, ito, hindi pa enough, no? Kasi kailangan natin ng isa pang endpoint to define the line. Kasi we need to define the line, and to define a line, we need 2 points. That's why a second cutting plane is necessary. Okay? Now, let's create another cutting plane, and this time, I'll create it in a different color. Cyan. Kunwari, again, doesn't need to be in any particular orientation. So, you can make it parallel. Pwede naman yon. And most students just do it parallel to the first cutting plane. Especially, pagka pen and paper, kasi di ba, isa-slide nyo lang 2 cutting planes agad. Pero again, doesn't need to be at a particular orientation. Ang gagawin ko is, let's try a horizontal line naman. Ay, mali ba yung ano ko? XZ, XY, sorry. Mali pala to, no? This should be, thank you for the correction, no? This should be XY. Yun lang ba yung mali ko? 4-5 din. This is 4-5. Project natin siya hanggang 4-5. So, mag-iiba yung ano nila, no? Thank you for the correction. Medyo malayo yung... Pero mag-intersect pa rin natin, no? Okay? Dito sila nag-intersect. This one. And let's just label it with a point. Parang ganyan. So, it's sort of like an imaginary point, no? Imaginary piercing point. Kumbaga, if it were extended, then it will be a sort of imaginary piercing point. So, ito yung siya. Next is, ito naman, itong CP2 natin. Let's label this as cutting plane number 2, CP2. Ito, this is along XZ. Tama? And this is along XY. XY is here as well, no? Tama ba? XY. This one is 4-5. Ito naman 5-6. 5-6, which is this one. Okay? Now, ang gagawin natin is connect lang natin to. And nag-meet sila. Actually, nag-meet sila dito, no? Same ba tayo? Ay, hindi pala natin masasabi. Kasi iba yung ano natin, cutting plates natin, no? So, dapat ang makukuha natin is a direction. So, eto, ang makikita natin is if I do a final answer. Final answer. I should have something that looks like, if I connect this one, and I lengthen it just to say na, and usually I like to place an arrowhead dito, no? Just to indicate that it is a direction and it is expanding. And minsan, I like to label it with I-LOI, no? So, the I here stands for imaginary. So, imaginary LOI siya. Okay? So, this imaginary LOI is an LOI if the two planes were to be extended. Okay? Now, if we want to complete all views, ang gagawin lang natin is we just project it again. So, we project it backwards. So, for example, ito, yung intersection point na to, this intersection point is brought about by cutting plane number 2. So, dapat, pagka pinoject natin siya, papunta sa cutting plane number 2. Okay? Sa cutting plane 2 natin siya ipoproject. So, yun yung imamark natin na piercing point or parang end point. Tapos, ito namang isa, and I'll color it with yellow, no? This is a point, the point that was produced using cutting plane number 1. So pagka pinroject natin siya pababa, dapat i-project natin siya hanggang doon sa cutting plane number 2. Okay? And now, this produces and I'll lengthen this again. Like so. Now, just an experiment. Try nyo din. Gawa kayo ng third line. If you did it correctly, dapat yung third line, when you produce the parang points for that third line, it will always lie in this imaginary LOI. Okay? So that's why it's important na ginawa natin through CAD to para accurate yung gawa natin. Minsan kasi pag ginawa mo to in pen and paper, hindi nagla-line up yung ano natin, no? Again, this is not necessary. Gagawin ko lang siya just to show you na arbitrary lang talaga yung cutting planes, no? That you can choose any cutting plane and the lines or the points that it will produce will always lie along the imaginary LOI. Okay? So I'll use another one. And I'll use, again, magenta yung gagamitin ko for this one. And I'll create a cutting plane in between. So, kunwari, something like this. Tapos, try ko lang. This is in between XZ. Ito naman. Different ko lang yung orientation, no? Para hindi masyadong yan. Para siguro ganito. So, this is along XZ. This one is along XY. Tapos, ito. This is along 4, 5. And this one is along 5, 6. And let's check if I did this correctly. And tama ba? Ginawa ko. Hindi masyado nag-meet, no? Para medyo malayo. Tama ba ginawa ko? Let me double check. 4, 5. Probably some inaccuracy. Let me do it again, no? Lagay ko siya dito naman sa para may variety. I'll create it here. Okay. So, ito ay XZ. This one is ZY. XZZY. 4, 6. This is 5, 6. Tama ba? And let's check. Quite close, no? Off lang ng konti. Ito siya. Pero again, if you look at it, again, because hindi accurate itong ano, no, yung PDF natin. Pero if you look at it, it's fairly close. Yung piercing point ni CP3, lies along the LOI. Tapos if we project this downwards, we can also see it also lies along the LOI here. Tama? So that just proves that whether you use that the arbitrary choice of the cutting planes do not affect the final answer. And let me just label this as ILOI to show na this is an imaginary LOI. Or you can also type imaginary LOI, no? So same ba tayo nakuha ang sagot? Yung general orientation? Tama, no? Pwedeng different yung ano natin, yung actual points na ginamit to define the line, but the direction of the line should be the same. Okay? Alright. So that's LOI. Proceed, there's the next lesson which is ginaulog ko na ba? The next one, which is angle between lines and planes. And a lot of this will also, I don't know, require knowledge on projections, especially yung mga true length, point view, true size, etc. File, open. And on the same worksheet, hindi na natin babaguhin. Attach lang tayo ulit. Attach. I'll choose angle between lines and planes. Tapos ang i-attach ko is itong tatlo. Omit ko na yung first page again. Tapos medyo ano to, no? Again, I'm just clicking one at a time. There are 4 pages. Pero naka-arrange at rearrange ko lang, no, para tamang positions na sila. 1, 2, 3. And lastly, ito, this is page 4. Okay. I'll just use the move command. So this should be correct now. Page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Right? So, measuring the true angle between lines and planes entails that you need to show both lines in their true length. Okay? Hindi nyo kayang determine yung lines if both lines are not in their true lengths. Alright? Kasi when you view different lines and different orientations in space, no, nagkakaroon kasi ng foreshortening of the lines, and this will also cause changes in the angles between them. Okay? So if you were asked or if the problem asks for an angle, kunwari, tatanungin niya is what is the angle between this and that, almost always this means the true angle, no? Unless it's specified na angle between ganito and ganyan in a particular view, then that's just an apparent angle. Pero pagka tinanong lang is what is the angle between line AB and line 1, 2, they are pertaining, or the problem is pertaining to a true angle, no? Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is we want to show both lines in their true length. So, the way we can do that is we can use the parallel plane method na ginamit natin dun sa SD. Tama? Kasi if you remember the parallel plane method, di ba ang lumabas dun was naka-edge view yung parallel plane, tapos parallel yung isa, tapos if we created a parallel reference plane, then that will expose the true lengths of both lines. So, pwede ganun yung gagawin natin. Or, the first option is to do a series of views, no? So, what we will take advantage of is the fact that in certain views, we can always predict kung ano yung magiging adjacent view niya. Okay? Like for example, if you remember the point view, ang point view will always have an adjacent view that is nakatulad. Tama? If you remember, diba pag point view, all views before and after the point view is always a true length. So gagamitin natin yun to our advantage. So what we'll do is, say we have line 1. Gagawin natin is si line 1 in the first view, so this is ARP1, gagawin natin such that si line 1, and I'll just say line 1 na lang. Pare, line 1 and 2. Ang gagawin natin in the first view, kukunin natin yung true length ni line 1. Okay? Tama? So we get the true length of line 1. Then after that, we take the point view of line 1. So in ARP2, we take the point view of the point view of line 1 again. Okay? Now we know that after this, any view that we choose, line 1 will always be true length again. Tama? Kasi pinoint view natin. So, ang pagka next view niya, sure tayo maging true length siya. So, we now take this opportunity para in this ARP3, gagawin natin true length si line 2. Which in turn, because naka-point view si line 1, automatic si line 1 will also be in its true length. So, this is what we call as the true length point view true length method. Okay, so TLPBTL method. Okay, so it just shows you kung ano yung steps na kinuha natin para maka-arrive at the view wherein both lines are shown in their true length. Okay? Alright. So, try natin. In this case, we can choose any line as our line 1. We can choose any line as our line 2. It just depends on yung orientations of the lines themselves, no? Parang which of the lines will give us enough space to work or which solution gives us the optimized na direction to fill out the space available for us. If we try to do line 1, 2 here, pag ganyan yung ano niya, ARP, di ba? So, automatic, hindi na pwede. Kasi, if we try to do ARP1 from FRP, automatic, papunta tayo sa baba, hindi mag-work yung method. Or, kumbaga, kulang tayo ng space. If we also try to do AB, pag ganyan, same case, no? Pababa siya. So, only choice natin is HRP. If we do 1, 2, pag ganyan siya. If we do AB, pag ganyan. Tama? Which is, just by looking at it, if we look at AB, kulang ng space dito, pero 1, 2 has the best optimum space, no? So, in this particular case, 1, 2 yung best choice na gawin nating as sort of line 1 natin. Yun yung una natin ito true length. Okay? So, let's create a parallel reference plane. Like so. And medyo i-didikit ko siya, no? I'm making it close kasi I'm worrying na baka kukulangin ako ng space eventually. So, medyo i-didikit ko siya. Let's label our lines or our folding lines. So, this is ARP1 and HRP. And let's produce our projection lines like so. And ito. Okay. So this is 1. Save lang natin. This is 2. Always make sure it's a perpendicular distance, no? Oh, mali. This one. The projection line in 2 and B are quite close, no? So, be careful. Baka mali yung matrim nyo. Ito naman si A. And lastly, si B. B is this one. Okay? So, AB is this one. 1, 2 is this one. And we say this is a true length. Okay? Tama? And let's just label it. Para di tayo malito. 1, 2, B, and A. Okay? Now that we have our true length, ang gagawin natin is to create the point view. And to create the point view, we just need perpendicular to the true length, no? So, ang gagawin natin is, let's extend the true length 1, 2. This, extend lang natin using a projection line. Tapos, ang gagawin natin is create tayo ng perpendicular reference plane dito. I'll move my labels around, no? Ito, i-move ko lang to. I'll move it to the other side kasi wala namang obstructions dito sa kabilang side, no? Para mas malaki yung room ko to create the perpendicular reference plane. Okay? So now, I'll make it perpendicular to this. I'll create a final answer. And pwede sigurong ganyan. I think this will work. Perpendicular, like this. And I'll put the labels here, no? Onto the left side. ARP2. Ano yan? Number 2? Ayaw nga. Thank you sa correction. Ulitin natin. Thank you for the correction, no? B ata yung nakopya ko dito, no? Or nakopya ko siya from here. Tama nga. Dito ko na lagay. So, dapat dyan. Thank you. So, ito. Just extend this one. So, this one now becomes dito siya. Okay, which changes our true length, no? Our orientation of our ARP will be much steeper pag ganyan siya. Nandito siya ngayon, no? Okay? So, this one, let's just change this. And I'll trim this a little bit. Ito, shorten ko lang yung ARP fold line ko, no? So, I have this one. Let's change to final answer. Create tayo ng, again, perpendicular. And let's label this as ARP1 sa taas, ARP2 naman sa baba. Okay? Now, basis for distances will be 1, 2. 2 views away. So, dito tayo sa HRP. Balik tayo sa construction layer. This is 1. Dito siya. And 1 and 2 should have the same distance, no? Because this is the point view. So, I'll just do PO. Ayan. To make it a final answer. And I'll just retain this notation for the point view. Kahit may circle siya, okay lang. Kasi, if I try to change it, magbabago din kasi yun nandito, no? So, I'll just change it. I'll just retain it there. Understandable naman na point view yan. So, we'll do, this is line 1, 2, shown in its point view. Tapos, next is si AB na lang, no? A is, that's the projection line of A. Projection line of B is this one. Okay, so A is a close distance here. A, B is this larger distance here. B. Ayan, mukhang mag-extend ako. Yan. So, next dito is create na tayo ng true length nitong AB. We are now at ARP3 and si ARP3 gusto natin i-true length si line AB para any orientation we do, 1, 2 will regardless become a true length. So now we need to draw the true length of AB. Okay? And let's just create a parallel reference plane like so. And let's label and place it here. ARP3 na to, no? And ARP2 sa baba. Probably need to move this. Medyo masikip ng space. I'll just move it here, no? Like so. Now let's create the construction lines. Tama? I could have probably made this closer dito, no? Para hindi ako lumagpas dito. Pero in any case, mukhang okay lang naman. Okay? Now, basis for distances is 2 views away. So, that's, I'm at ARP3. So, 2 views away is 1, 2. So, dito sa fold line na to yung basis. So, this is where it can get a little bit confusing, no? Kasi, in my case, parang nag-overlap na yung mga fold lines ko. So, just be mindful, no? Keep track of where the fold lines are. Sino yung views before and views after. Pero, can I make it? Since this is the last view, I think pwede kong no? Pwede kong i-move to. I can move it further here. Last view naman na to. So, I'll move it here. Kasi ito, I'll move this such that sorry. Ito, pwede kong i-shorten ito, no? Nandyan lang. Para hindi na siya overlapping. Okay, I'll just move it around to make it a little cleaner. This one is less confusing na, no? So, very, kita na dito, ARP2, ARP3 here, ARP2 here, ARP1 here. So, this is a little less confusing, no? Okay? So, I just shortened some of the reference lines, no, to make it less overlapping. Okay? Now, pwede na tayong gumawa ng i-project na natin. Naka-project na si 1, 2, si AB. Projectin natin si 1, 2, which is a point view. Ito, kunin na natin yung true length nito, which is this one. This is point 1. I'll just trim it from this side para pwedeng measure ko to and just place it here, no? That's another way of doing it, no? Because it's a true length, pwede kong i-measure siya directly dito. Okay? And then, AB this is the distance of A. A is here. And this is the distance of B, which is this one. Again, 2 views away. So 1, 2, 2 fold lines away, 1, 2. Kaya ito yung basis ko. Okay? So now, if I connected this, this one and this one, and I'll redo this line. This is now, both lines now, I'll just place it here. This is a true length, and this is also a true length. This is 0.2 and 0.1. This one is point A. Ito na. This is A. This one is point B. And because this is now the true length, pwede natin i-measure yung true angle, no? The true angle will always be the acute angle. Pwede naman, if you reported the obtuse angle, hindi ko naman mina-minus, no? Pero usually, I just report the true angle. Okay? Sorry, I report the acute angle. And yun din yung convention natin, no? Pero again, hindi ako super strict on that. If you reported the obtuse angle, okay lang din. So you can measure and see that it's 67 and you can just type in 67 degrees like so. Dig. Or pwedeng ang gawin nyo is instead of measuring, pwede namang dimension nyo siya, no? So let's do dim. Tapos let's do angular A. Select this line and this line. Kaso medyo malaki. Mamaya i-ano ko lang, position ko lang dito. Tapos what I'll do is I'll just select this one. Tapos properties. Dim style. I'll make it smaller, no? Yung scale niya. Tama ba? Magbabago ba ito? 0.1. Ano, it's not line type scale. Dito tayo magbabago sa, meron overall, ano dito. Hindi, gusto kong ibaguhin yung overall fit niya, no? Ito, dim scale overall. Para hindi ko na babaguhin yung font and arrows independently. Gawin natin is yung overall fit yung baguhin natin. So, let's do 0.1. And that should change it, no? Pero parang laki pa rin ng 0.1. Let's make it a little smaller pa. 0.1 is still too big. Baka here's a fit. Let's do 0.05. Yan. 0.05 seems to work better, no? Pwede ganyan. So, you can report it like this. 67. Same ba tayo nakuha? 67 ba nakuha? Baliktad yung ginawa ko. Sorry. Ay, mukhang ano nga. Sorry, thank you for the correction, no? Kasi, this one is for A. Nabaliktad ko. So, ito dapat si A. So, what I can do is I create a parallel line. I'll just extend this. Okay. Thank you. So, this is A. This is B. And I'll change the dim, no? I'll do dim again, angular. I select the, and again, same as before, final answer. Tapos gawin natin yung dim overall, fit overall, 0.05 seems to work, no? So you can have this one. 65 yung sagot ko. Same ba? 65? Ano yung nakuha mo? 64? Okay lang yun. Good enough. Again, because this is not, hindi kasi siya created to AutoCAD, we can have discrepancies, no? 65 yung nakuha ko. Yung iba, ano nakuha? 65 din? Okay. Again, ang necessary lang the report is the acute angle, no? No need to report the obtuse. Okay? So that's how you get the true angle. Another method is to use yung sinabi ko kanina, the parallel plane method, no? Yung ginamit natin to find the shortest distance. Ano yun? Alright, so that's how you do true length point view true length method. Ang next natin gagawin is the parallel plane method. So kung naalala nyo dun sa um, shortest distance natin, ang ginawa natin was we created a parallel plane that contained one of the lines. Tapos sinadya natin na i-edge view siya para or sinadya natin na yung plane na kinrate natin was truly parallel to the other line. Para pag in-edge view natin yung plane, ang lumabas was both the lines were shown to be parallel in ARP1. Tama? So ngayon, ang gagawin natin is, since we have already found both lines parallel to each other, a view that they look parallel to each other, gagawin natin is create lang tayo ng isa pang reference plane that is parallel to both the lines. Because after that, dahil parallel yung reference plane natin, magtutrulan sila parehas ng sabay. Tama? So, let's see it in action. Di ba, ang sabi natin dati was, one of the edge, isasadyain natin na gagawin natin siyang parallel to the reference plane para meron na tayong convenient true length. And the other edge, sasadyain natin na nakaparallel dun sa other line. Okay? And that other line will be the basis for why the plane will become truly parallel to the other line. Okay? So dito probably we can do, I think easiest is parallel dito, tama? We can do horizontal line here. Ganyan. Tapos parallel to this line. Tama? I think that's the easiest one. Para ang mangyayari is, if this is point C, AC is now the true length pag lumabas siya dito. Tapos BC is the one that is parallel to 1, 2. Right? So pag dito, we project point C. Tapos ang gagawin natin is, since BC is truly parallel to line 1, 2, dapat BC should always be parallel to line 1, 2 in any view. Kasi yun naman yung rules of parallelism, no? So, ito, we have found point C and we just connect it. That is now our true length here. Okay? That's the easiest way to do the parallel plane method. Ulit. Yung BC, AC is parallel to reference plane. Yung distance, hindi, kung saan nag-intersect si line na to. Kasi itong line na to is parallel with this line. So, kumbaga, sige, hindi ko iti-trim ha. This one is parallel to this one. So, nakaganyan siya. This one is horizontal. Ayan. Tama? Kung saan sila nag-intersect, itong parallel line and yung horizontal line, kung saan sila intersect, yun yung location ni point C. Pwede din sa pwede. Ang ginawa mo is pag ganyan. Ganyan. Pagka ganyan, arbitrary na. Kumari ito, arbitrary na si point C. Pwede din naman to, mag-work pa rin naman to. Ang problema lang, hindi naman problema, pero kailangan mo lang mag-create ng BB prime para gumawa ng true length. Pero whether you use this one, ito, or yung sa baba dito, you will still find that the true length will be along this direction. Okay? So, pwede rin naman to. This can work, no? But again, it's always convenient na ang gamitin nyo is one of the edges, the one that is conveniently parallel to the HRP, FRP. Para automatic true length na siya. No more messing about, no? Pero, if you want if you want that style, no? Yung create kayo dito sa taas, okay lang din naman. That can also work. In fact, ipapakita ko lang. Sige, gagawa ko ng if we were to do the alternate route na dito tayo gagawa, tapos arbitrary CC, mangyari lang is BC would be here. Tapos, BB prime would be this one. And if you project it, punta dyan. Notice how this true length is the same as this true length. Kumbaga, kaparallel sila. Okay? And that makes sense, no? Kasi we made it such that parallel plane, sinadya natin siya na truly parallel plane siya to the line 1, 2 and containing line ABC. So, which means that yung orientation ng ARP would be perpendicular to this one. Parang ganyan. Nandito kasi si ARP na kailangan natin. So, whether you choose this true length or you choose this true length, same ARP orientation pa rin. So, that's saying na, kumbaga, ang sinasabi lang dito is, the parallel plane is arbitrary, pero the ARP orientation that it produces is not, no? It will always be the same direction, always, regardless of ano yung pinili nyong arbitrary point C. As long as you made it such na yung conditions are correct, no? Again, the condition was, kailangan truly parallel itong ABC kay 1, 2. Okay? So hopefully, ano to no? I'll just delete some of the lines kasi baka feeling ko mako-confuse kayo. I'll delete this one, yung alternative solution. I'll just delete this. Oops. And I'll just stick with yung original solution ko, which entails minimal lines, no? So, yun nga, maganda dito sa technique na to is that the good thing about this technique is parang sobrang konti lang yung lines na napoproduce, no? Again, AC is the line that produces the true length. BC is the line that is truly parallel to 1, 2. Okay? Again, this is the same technique that we use to find the shortest distance. Right? So, ito, this is a final answer. Tapos, let's label this one. I'll label yung dito. Ito. Yung ito na line. Parallel dito. Kasi 'di ba truly parallel siya eh. So ibig sabihin parallel siya in all views. Okay? And if you want to write the proofs, you can write the proofs no, pero again, hindi na siya necessary, pero sige, I'll write it down. Sabi dito is BC is parallel to line 1, 2 in FRP. BC is parallel to 1, 2 again in HRP. Or hindi naman sinadya natin na maging parallel siya in HRP again, such that BC is truly parallel to 1, 2, which makes it such that ABC is truly parallel to 1, 2. So yung ano natin, parallel plane na ginawa natin is proven to be truly parallel. Or yung plane na ginawa natin to contain AB is truly parallel to line 1, 2 because of these proofs. No? Okay? So, now that we have this, because we have the truly parallel plane, we can now create this orientation of the ARP. So, again, ang gagawin kasi natin is we make the plane as an edge view para pag nag-edge view si plane, ang mangyayari is because it's a truly parallel plane, then it will show both lines as if they were, it will show both lines in a parallel manner, no? Okay? So again, the key or yung um, yung checkpoint nyo dito is that if 1, 2, and AB appears parallel after ARP1, then you have done the method correctly. If hindi siya nag-appear parallel, then you did something wrong, no? Okay? So, let's check. If I did this correctly, dapat mag-appear to parallel yung both lines. So, this is HRP to the right, ARP1 to the bottom. So, let's make this final answer. Pwede ko sigurong move pa to. Let's move it. Siguro something like this. Better ba dito ko ilagay? Yeah, okay lang. Okay, so project natin. Let's project point B is this one, point 1. Okay, so 1 is this distance. Okay, 2 views away, 1, 2. Two is this distance away. So, connect this. That's line 1, 2. Then let's create AB. This B is here. A is, tama ba ito ang distance ni A? Hindi pa yata. A is this distance. And if I create the final answer, They are parallel, no? Tama? And that's just to check. I'll just create a parallel line. Tama, parallel sila. Okay? So, this is A. This is B. And let's create a parallel reference plane to this one. Okay? And that should be ARP2. And since, again, checkpoint, look at your two lines in ARP1. If they appear parallel to each other, then you did the parallel plane method correctly. If hindi sila nag-appear parallel, then you did something wrong along the way. No? Okay? Now that you have this, you now create a parallel reference plane. And it makes sense, no? Because parallel to two lines na to. So if I orient the next reference plane parallel to the two lines, then simultaneously magiging true length parehas yung two lines. Tama? So, what we'll do is we'll just project perpendicular like so. Ito naman, pwedeng parallel to this projection line. This one parallel to this projection line. Lastly, this one parallel to this projection line. Tapos, two views away. 1, 2. So, dito yung basis natin distances. And two fold lines away. 1, 2. And by the way, hindi ko na label. I'll just label quickly. Dito lang magle-label. This is ARP1, tapos ARP2 sa baba. Ano? Okay? Eto no. Point B is, oh sorry. Point B is this distance away. Point A is this distance. Lalagpas ata si point A. Lalagpas ako sa papel, no? Pero sige, okay lang. Baliktad yung... okay. Thank you. Kaya pala. Thank you for the correction. So, ito, magkabaliktad, no? Gawin ko na lang is I'll create a parallel line, a perpendicular line here. Pero lalagpas pa rin ako either way, no? Same ba tayo? Tama? Or hindi kayo lumagpas? Hindi lumagpas sa inyo? Ba't ako Dahil ba masyadong malayo? Bakit? Masyado ito malayo yung dito ko, no? Dapat dinikit ko pa. Kasi pag dinikit ko to, hindi ganun kalayo yung from ARP ko. Tama? Kasi ang basis ng distances dito is this distances right here. Tama? So mukhang yun yung naging issue ko, no? If I made it closer sana, hindi sana ako lalagpas sa papel. Okay lang. Hindi ko na siya i-correct, no? Next is point 1 is this distance. May alarm ata. Grabe yung alarm. Ngayon lang kayo gigising. Grabe lang kayo. Tapos, point 2. And I'll connect this. Tapos, I'll just dim again. Dim, angular, and I'll choose this one and this one. Tapos, uh, quick tip, I think ginawa na natin to dati is to use match properties. No? If ayaw nyong i-edit ulit to, what you can do is you click the old one, yung angular dimension na to. You type in MA for match properties. Tapos select nyo to para ma-inherit niya yung properties ng kabila. So now, lilit na yung image. 43 nakuha ko. Same ba tayo? Meron ba nakakuha na 43 din? Okay? Usually naman sa mga plates no and exams, plus minus 2 yung inano ko, plus minus 2 degrees. Basta as long as you're in within plus minus 2 degrees, minamark ko na as correct yun, no? But technically, since CAD to, dapat more accurate yung gawa nyo, no? Baka plus minus 1 lang kapag ano, using CAD. Sa manual, plus minus 2 yung ginagawa ko. Pero CAD, I think plus minus 1, pwede na. O sige, plus minus 2 na nga lang. Okay? Now let's do the next one, which is angle between a line and a plane. So, when you have a line and a plane, ang kailangan yung mangyari is that dapat naka-true length yung line, tapos si plane, ano yung tingin nyo? What's the most intuitive na arrangement dapat ng plane? Edge view dapat, no? Kasi parang ang hirap mag-measure ng angle pagka hindi sila mukhang line talaga parehas. Tama? So, ang gusto natin mangyari is that we want the plane to be an edge view and the line to be a true length. Now, the first method is edge view true size true length method. So, ito siya, EVTSTL. So, let's see what the method actually does, no? So, we have AR, gamitin lang natin to, itong column na to. So we have ARP1, ARP2, ARP3. This method also uses 3 additional views. So, let's track, ito yung line, let's call it L, and ito yung plane, let's call it P. So, sa ARP1, ang sabi daw is edge view muna. So, you take the edge view of the plane. So, the plane becomes an edge view. The line, random orientation na siya. Tama? Wala naman nangyari sa line. Okay? Next one is, after making the edge view, what you do is, gagawin mo true size yung plane. So, true size the plane. And again, wala mangyayari sa line mo. Okay, we're still working on the plane. Tama? So, it's edge view and true size. Now, similar to this one, wherein before and after the point view, di ba true length? Ano yung before and after the true size? It's always an edge view. Tama? Does that make sense? Parang edge view siya lagi. Basta kung may true size ka, before and after, it's always an edge view. So, what happens is, eto, regardless of ano yung manipulation na gagawin mo, ano yung ARP3, ARP3 will always show the plane in its edge view. So ngayon, we will take this opportunity para sa ARP3, gagawin natin true length, C line. Okay? So that's why the method is called edge view true size true length. Tama ba? Edge view true size true length because you're working here, edge view true size true length. Ito, byproduct na lang to. Na naging edge view si plane. Because of the nature of true sizes na we're in. Before and after, it's always an edge view. Okay? So, line and plane. So, yun yung ano natin. General direction ng solution. Okay? So, let's start. And yung mahirap dito, class, no, kasi you also need to project the correct visibility. So, yun yung nagpapahirap sa problem na to. Kasi bukod sa paghanap ng angles, kailangan din ipakita yung correct visibility, which means that you also need to show the piercing point. Okay? So, let's start first with edge view true size and true length. Then, we'll work our way backwards para ma-project yung piercing point. And I think, siguro last lesson lang muna natin to for now. Kasi 4:10 na, kaya pa ba natin? And baka masyado na tayong saturated. I'll just check the schedule kung kaya pa ba natin. Check ko lang. Piercing point. Mukhang kaya naman, no? Bukas, yung first half or first 1/3 of the lesson, siguro 1 hour, tapusin lang natin yung tapusin lang natin yung angle between lines and planes. Tapos, before we proceed into isometric to multi-view projection. Kaya naman within 2 hours lang ang isometric view, multi-view projection. No? So, mukhang magaan to. Yan ko na lang. Lagay ko dito. No? Adjust ko na. May chance ba mag-suspension? Ayaw nga. Pag may super typhoon, asynchronous na lang tayo. Magre-record ako ng videos for both. Or meron naman akong recordings na for both. Send ko na lang sa inyo for you to view, no? Meron na rin ako for CAD nito eh. So, all set naman tayo, no? 7, 8. Okay? Sure na ba na magpapasok na siya? Anong typhoon to? Super typhoon. Letter B yun eh. Bavi. Tuesday evening or early Wednesday morning. Mukhang, hindi, baka hindi kayo makauwi, no? Sige. Abangan na lang yung announcement sa news. If, baka alas 10 or alas 9 siguro baka mag-email na ako kung asynchronous tayo. Or gusto nyo ba mag-proactive na tayo? Okay lang ba sa inyo asynchronous na tayo bukas? Para hindi na natin i-risk yung chance na ma-stranded kayo somewhere. Ito na lang, magsisynchronous tayo bukas. Synchronous na live session para pwede kayong magtanong. Pero online siya. Pwede pumasok kung gusto nyo. Synchronous. Dito ako magsisynchronous na live. Tapos i-feed ko through Zoom or Google Meet. Tapos recorded din siya para doon sa mga hindi makasali sa online. Tapos kung gusto nyo pumasok, pwede naman pumasok din kayo dito. Okay? So ganun na lang gagawin natin. Okay. So, last lesson for today. Again, edge view, true size, true length. First off, let's look at the plane. May conveniently parallel, no? Itong AC. And let's just try to look at the direction of the solution. AC here is a true length. So, pwedeng pa ganyan siya. Yun yung first na natin, orientation. At mukhang pasok naman, no? Kasi dito siya mag-edge view. Tapos after that, dito tayo mag-true length and true size, then true length. I think mukhang okay na naman to yung orientation na to, no? So, AC, we label this as a true length. AC is the true length. Therefore, we can extend AC using a parallel line. So, para pwede tayong gumawa ng perpendicular reference plane. Like so. Okay, and let's label this one. I think I'll label it this way, no? Ito. I'll say ARP1 and to the left is HRP, no? Okay. And then let's just project parallel, parallel. Okay, basis for distances is this one, point A. Then this is point B, is a short distance, this one. Point 1 is this one. Point 2 is this distance. Okay, so let's do final answer. 1, 2 is this one. ABC is this one. Which now we can label this as an edge view. Okay? Move this around. Edge view. Right? Now that we have the edge view, gagawa tayo ng true size muna. So again, edge view, true size, then true length. So let's do this one. I think this is a good distance. Makukulangan kaya ako ng space. Baka sapat naman, no? I'll use text. This is ARP, sorry. ARP1 nga sa taas, ARP2 sa baba. Okay? Let's shift to construction lines. So, no need to, sorry, hindi pala. Kailangan i-project lahat ng planes, no? Asan yung C? C is here din pala. So, this is point C. So, here, I'll just trim this side. Para yung matira is point A, no? Line AC na. Okay, so this is point A. I'll trim the other side. So, this line becomes AC na to. We should, balikan ko lang, I should have labeled my points here, no? This is CA in its point view. C comes first because mas closer si C, no? C is closer to the fold line. This is point 1. This is point 2. And this is point B. Right? Tapos, 1 and 2, point B muna. Point B is this one. Para pwede ko nang i-connect ito. Then, we have 1, 2. 1, this distance away. And 2 is this smaller distance. 2, this one. And now I can connect. So we can change this one and this line. Gawin natin siyang final answer. And label na rin natin. This is point C. This is point B. This one is point A. Point 2 and point 1. And we also need to say that this is the true size. Okay? Next one is we will create the true length of this line para pagkalabas sa next view, naka-edge view na ulit si ABC. Because again, this is a true size, no? Any view before and after will always be an edge view. So we can make it either here, ang true size, or dito sa baba, no? I'm thinking, mas malaki yata space sa baba. Tama ba? Or sa taas ba ang mas malaki? I think okay lang sa baba tayo gagawa, no? So I'll make it closer para move it a little bit. Ganyan siguro. And let's label. This is ARP2 and sa baba is ARP3. Okay? Let's create our projection lines. And this should be kulang pa, no? Hindi pa to final answer kasi we still need we still have the challenge of creating the correct visibility. And papakita ko sa inyo kung paano i-create, yung hidden lines. Okay? This is the basis for distances for all of the lines in A, B, and C, no? So, si point A, point B, point C, puro sila ganitong distance kasi if you look at it, kasi we made it parallel. So, A should be here. And actually, yung pwede natin gawin is to just create a line that is perpendicular to this other projection line. And we can extend this one, kabila, to find the edge view. Oh, sorry. Hindi pala dito. Ulitin ko lang. I'll extend this one. Gagawin natin is we create this parallel to the HRP or perpendicular to the fold lines. No, doesn't really matter. It should be the same. Okay. So again, we can do that because we know that A, B, and C have exactly the same distance. So now, this becomes an edge view. Do edge view. Tapos, ang kailangan lang natin is to project line 1, 2. So, this is distance of 2. Distance of 1 is this one. And medyo malayo si 1, no? Magpas ako. Tapos, now we can measure the angle. We do dim, angular, this angle and this angle. And I'll just change this to final answer. Tapos, copyan ko yung match property ko lang ulit, no? This one, match property to this one. Okay, para same sila ng size. Okay, 51 yung nakuha ko. Hopefully, we got the same answer, no? 51. But again, this is not done yet. Mamaya, papakita ko sa inyo how we can complete this plate or window by finding the piercing point and showing correct visibility. Kaya medyo link tong dalawang lesson na to, no? Yung angles, angle between line and plane and the piercing point and line of intersection kasi you will still need to, show correct visibility after getting the angle. Okay? So, tinak po ako. I'll label my points. 2, B. Okay. Papakabol ko muna kayo before I show how to create the piercing points, no? Kasi creating the piercing points will be a little difficult. We will have to integrate a point by break a point, tapos create hidden lines. Marami na gawin. There By the way, plate 2 tsaka worksheet, pakisubmit kayo ha. Plate 2 at worksheet, masubmit. Ano nga yung binago ko dito? So while you're doing that, no, unpause ko lang, no. Let's continue. Ang next natin na gagawin is to locate the piercing point. Now, same as we did before, yung sa, where was that? Dito, wherein, pag nahanap natin yung edge view, makikita na natin yung piercing point, no? Tama? So, in ARP1 pa lang, kaya na natin maghanap yung piercing point because this is already an edge view and this is a true length. So, pwede natin i-project backwards itong piercing point na to and pwede din i-project siya forwards. Okay? And also, pwede rin natin gamitin tong CARP3 because it also shows the edge view of the plane. So, whether you use this one or you use this one doesn't really matter. It will give you the same answer, no? So, I'll just use whichever is closer, no? To the particular na view I'm trying to complete. Okay? So dito, for this HRP, gagamitin ko lang itong CARP1. So this is the piercing point. Gawa tayo ng projection line where it intersects the given line 1, 2. Yan yung piercing point natin. And let's label it with the point PO. Then we project it downwards. Dito, from FRP, this is now also the piercing point. And we can say, itong point na to, let's give it a final answer. And let's label that as well, no? PP. Final answer pala to. Tapos, let's copy it. And let's copy this one. Let's label this as PP as well, no? Tapos, ito din. This is also our piercing point. Move ko lang yung label ng edge view. Tapos, for this one, I can use this view or I can use this view as well. Let's try to use this view atong sa ARP3 to get the piercing point in ARP2. So, let's just create a projection line. Tapos, gagawa tayo ng point dito, PO. Okay? And final answer to. And let's label it with PP as well, no? Okay? So, that's the piercing point. Tapos, ang gagawin natin is, it's almost complete. Show correct visibility na lang tayo. So, what needs correct visibility is HRP, FRP, and ARP2. Yun yung tatlong views na kailangan ipakita yung correct visibility. So, let's first find HRP kasi ito madali lang. Let's use the projection line. And sa first projection line natin, it meets, by the way, I'm realizing, same lang pala to, no? Tama ba? Para same lang. Dapat pala hindi natin hinulit. Same lang pala siya. So, add lang tayo ng 2 more views, no? Same lang pala siya. Okay? 2 more views to get the true angle. Okay? So, ginawa natin is, eto from this apparent intersection. So, I'm looking at 1, 2 versus AC. Unang tinamaan si 1, 2, which means that 1, 2 is the solid line. Tama ba? 1, 2 is solid. So, 1, 2 becomes solid here. Just to confirm, tama ba? Same ba tayo ng conclusion? Same naman. So 1, 2 is solid. So this becomes a broken line past the piercing point. Tapos dito naman, you don't even need to do a projection line, no? Some students, when they do this in pen and paper, ang gagawin lang nila is they slide it triangles. Tapos yung edge ng triangle, yun lang yung pag-decide nila. So for example, pwede nga ituro mo lang. Pare, ito AB and 1, 2. You just scan it like so. Tapos unang tinamaan si AB. So pwede naman hindi kayo gumawa ng physical na or digital na ano no na line. You can just use your arrow your mouse to track who is closer. So ito naman 1 2 versus AB, unang tinamaan si AB, so AB is closer, therefore broken, solid siya dito. Solid ito. Okay? So okay 'yan. Pero dito, we need to separate the two lines. So one thing you can do is pwedeng i-shorten nyo yung isang line, tapos create lang kayo ng other line like so. Oh, sorry. This is perhaps the easiest way. Parang ganyan, para maka-create kayo ng two lines so that pwede nyong i-format differently sila. Isa ay broken at isa ay solid. Pero another way you can do it is if it's a single line, we use the command break at point. So yung break at point is exactly what it sounds like, no? Ipuputulin mo yung line at a particular point. So if I type in break at point, ito break at, may shortcut ba itong break at? BA or BP? Wala siyang na shortcut. Break, kailangan talaga i-type mo break at. So break at point, if you type in break at, you can break this object. So I'll select the line and my break point will be this one. So I'll break it at this point. So now I have this line and this line. I'll probably need to break it at this point din, no? In case ito yung hidden line. Pero for now, hindi ko muna siya i-break. Check lang muna natin kung sino yung nakikita, no? So, let's draw a projection line. I'll just draw a projection line here para mas malinaw. I'll draw a projection line. Tapos, I'm comparing CA and 1, 2. Unang tatamaan, si 1, 2. Okay? So, 1, 2 is on top. Tama? So, which means this is a whole solid line. So, ito is solid. Ito, gagawin natin ngayon na hidden. So, the way we introduce a hidden line is we type L type. Ano yon? Baliktad ang B. Ito? Oo nga. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. So, this is point B, this is point A. So, which means baliktad dito. Point B is here, no? Okay? Thank you. So, ito, ang gagawin natin is, this is now solid, this is now hidden, itong nandito na part, itong right side. So, ang gagawin natin is, we type L type, and may lalabas na ganitong, options sa line type manager. So, you should have a line hidden na line type. If wala kayong hidden line type na lumabas, then we need to add it back, no? So, by default, ang lumalabas lang dyan is continuous lang. So, para maibalik yung line type hidden, ang gagawin natin is we can press in load, tapos hahanapin nyo yung dash line. So, you can either go with hidden, itong hidden 1, hidden 2, pwede yan, any of those will work, tapos adjust na lang natin yung scale later on. Or, what you can do is, personal choice of man is the Japanese na international standard, no, or JIS. Kasi medyo mas maganda yung spacing ng nila, no, line type. So you can also choose JIS, no. Okay? So once you press OK, so kunwari gusto ko idagdag si JIS. So I'll say JIS 0.75 kunwari, okay? Lilitaw na siya dito as an option na pwede kong piliin. Okay? So notice again, si JIS, maganda siya kasi yung spacing in between niya, medyo mas malaki, no? So it makes it very apparent kapag pagka nasa na siya sa model space. Okay? So I'll use JIS. I'll just press OK. Parang ganyan. Now what I'll do is I'll select the object. I'll go into the properties. Shortcut ng properties is Control 1. So if you press Control 1, pwede nyo na piliin sa line type instead of by layer, ang pipiliin ko is yung JIS. If hindi siya lumabas, kunwari ito parang solid line pa rin siya, is because masyadong malaki yung scale na hindi kita yung broken lines. So again, di ba naalala nyo, ang most sa mga tinatype natin is 0.1, 0.05. So probably 0.1 will work here, no? So if I type 0.1, lilitaw na yung broken line. Okay? 0.1 is the line scale for this one. Okay? So again, I like to use JIS. If you choose hidden, okay lang din naman yon. That is also a good option, no? And from there, complete na yung final answer natin. The correct visibility is shown. And ito, no need to show correct visibility kasi naman siya, no, naka-edge view and true length naman siya. Ay, wait, may kulang tayo dito. Kailangan i-label yung true length. Tama? Dapat labeled itong true length na to. Again, always label mga special na orientations, no? Whether it's true length, true size, edge view, etc. Kailangan naka-label yung mga ganun. Okay? Line time. Okay? So, dito actually tumatagal yung mga students, no, yung pag-break ng lines, tapos pag-format. Kasi minsan, pag pinormat, hindi lumilitaw agad yung, no, yung mismong broken line. So, kailangan pa i-adjust yung scale. So, sa, sa plate na ibigay ko, I'll make sure na hindi na kailangan adjust yung, no, yung scaling. Dapat by default, yung mga one na scaling would automatically give this, i-scale ko na lang appropriately. Okay? So I think we can end there muna kasi medyo madami na tayo na-discuss, no? Bukas, again, you can come here, depending on the announcement, no? Kung nag-announce talaga ng classes are suspended, huwag na kayo pumasok. Pero kung maulan lang, walang announcement, then I'll do a synchronous na live session. I'll broadcast it through Google Meet. Tapos join na lang kayo or you can join here in class, no? If you want. Tapos, we'll do 2 lessons. First lesson is yung continuation nito. And the next one is yung isometric to multi-view projection. Okay? So, let me end the session now.